Welcome back, everybody, to Take the Black Live. I'm joined by fan-sided editor Josh Hill. We are back
everybody.
for... Yes, hello indeed. We're here for another episode of A Song of Dan and Josh, the show where we go through every single chapter of George R. R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire opus and break it down. What makes it work, what makes it not work. We're going to answer those questions for you. And we are now on A Clash of Kings, the second book in the series.
Yeah.
And we're in the second chapter, Arya 1. Arya kicks off this book. What do you think of that?
She does, technically. I mean, we got through the prologue.
The prologue. You don't have to count the prologues. You can or you can't.
Yeah, to each their own. It makes sense, because like one of the biggest cliffhangers from the first book was, does Arya die?
I wanted to ask you about that.
Not?
Okay, that's my first question to you.
Yes.
So this chapter is quite short. This is just Arya on the road to King's Landing, just a little slice of what she's up to.
Yes.
And at the end, her last chapter in A Game of Thrones is her watching her father die, and then Yoren, this greasy Night's Watchman, taking her aside, and then we don't really see what happens.
No.
We see him take out a knife. I think the last line is like about tears coming down her face. Like, you could read that and say, oh my God, he killed her. And is Martin playing dirty by making fans wait a whole book to see that, no, she's fine, he just cut her hair to pass her off as a boy?
No.
Because on the show, this is not a cliffhanger at all. We get this immediately.
Yeah, I don't think he's playing dirty.
No?
I think it's fair game to do that at the end of that book.
All
Because
right.
you got to keep people interested. You know, that was a question people had. Like, we jumped right into this right after we finished the first book, but if you're reading it between publications, that's a cliffhanger that you want to know. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cliffhanger on the show, which it wasn't, because we can kind of skip along at a quicker clip.
Well, yeah, also
on the
that
show.
couldn't. Like, could you imagine, like, on the show, they would have had to, like, just have a shot of the knife being drawn, and then, like, it going toward Arya's face and it cutting
It'd be
away.
really cheesy. It's hard to translate it to the show.
Right.
It worked fine in the book for me. I didn't think it was like dirty pool or anything like that.
Well, how forgiving of you. I think it's kind of bullcrap. I
Well,
don't know.
there you go.
End your book with you're not sure what this character is. And then I think he knew it because he opened the book with Arya. He's like, okay, I got to establish right away that she's fine.
Oh,
People
he knew.
don't worry.
He knew.
And I mean, this is a guy who sometimes his book, we can go 8 years between books. I mean, back then it wasn't so much.
No.
It was much shorter, but still. I'm not a fan, but I'm...
Well,
I mean, no harm, no foul. We watching the
agree
show.
to
We all know she
disagree.
didn't die, so it's fine. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Really quick, Dan asked, do we think when we get a Dance of Dragons epilogue, Winds of Winter will be out? He's asking, when we're done reading the entire series, will the new book be out?
I hope so, because then we're going to read it. And
Yeah.
we're going to do it on Facebook Live.
I think it will. I think
better
it
be.
will.
I'm heavily
I hope it
invested.
will.
I didn't really care before, because I'm like, whatever, this is kind of just
Right.
some fun drama. But now it's like, Al Pacino and The Godfather 3. Like, you pull me back in. I'm like, damn it, now I care. So
Okay.
I'm with you.
So the rest of the chapter. So again, like I said, like it's not long at all.
No.
It's quite short. It's just kind of her, putzing around doing her stuff. What jumped out to me was some of the thematic stuff. So I think the chapter opens with her talking about how she hates the name Lumpy Head. That some, dick kid on the troop gave the name of Lumpy Head because she has lumpy heads. The idea of Arya getting names happens a lot. Like she's already... Like, Yoren named her, you're Arya the Orphan Boy now. Like, that's a nickname she has.
Savage. But
Well, I mean,
it's not untrue, but, well, it's mostly untrue.
She talks about how they called her Arya Horseface at Winterfell.
Unfair.
Now she has the name Lumpy Head. But, and I mean, on one level, it's okay, nicknames. Another level...
I don't think those are nicknames. That's like...
Yeah, those are nicknames.
Well, nicknames in like a very flexible way, more like picking on her. Like I never like
Fair
named
enough.
somebody that I liked Lumpy Head. I wasn't like, yeah, I'm going hanging out with Horseface tonight.
Well, it's,
like,
well, what
it's
it's like,
it might
when
be
you, like,
endearing,
know,
but
like-
it's not coming off in an endearing way when they're so aggressive with these nicknames.
Fair enough. But the thematic point of it is that even though it seems like it's just kind of a throwaway detail, this leads very directly into Arya's journey, which is all about identity. Like later in the story, she will literally become other people and take on their names and their faces and everything. And I think that's very deliberate.
It is.
Like, because the nickname thing is a theme with Arya, and it's all setting us up for she adopts different identities.
Yeah.
Like, she's learning to do it here by, you're not Arya, you're Arya the Orphan Boy. You're not Arya, you're Lumpy Head. You're Arya Horseface. Like, this is her training for the Faceless Men in a way.
Yeah. We can dog George R. R. Martin for leaving a cliffhanger, not leaving a cliffhanger between the books. But we saw this plenty of times in the first book where he's laying the groundwork for something that's going to blossom later into some theme that we're going to be talking about, whether it's Ned, the whole story being this typical hero, this fantasy hero, and following all of these tropes, and then you get a plot twist at the end where it doesn't end up working out. Same thing with Arya here. We're kind of laying the groundwork for the entire identity of her character.
Yeah. It's hard to, like, I always wonder, like, did he just write this and then get the idea, oh, I can run with this identity thing and the other thing, or did he plan this all along?
I'd like to think he planned it.
Yeah, me too. But, well, maybe we'll find out one
Why
day.
you got to ruin it like that? Here, I'm waxing poetic about how George R. R. Martin's got a plan from the start, and you're like,
you can still wax about it, because, I mean, it's as long as it's thematically cohesive, which it is, it's fine, in my opinion. Okay, another theme. The whole idea of out of the frying pan into the fire. Arya's been on the run for a while. She was outside the Red Keep trying to just scrap by herself. And we get this description at the top of the chapter by Yoren, the kindly Night's Watchman who's trying to take her. The plan here is to take her back to Winterfell. Yeah. She's going to blend in with these Night's Watch recruits, just pass her off as a boy, but then he's going to drop her off Winterfell before they get to the wall. Now, and I know it doesn't really end up happening. No. But that's the idea. It's not a bad plan. No. But Yoren warns her, you have to stay committed to your fake identity, because if you don't, there will be consequences. The way he puts it is, this lot, half of them would turn you over to the queen quick as spit for a pardon and maybe a few silvers. The other half do the same, only they'd rape you first. Is that sensationalist? Is that irresponsible? Or is that just reality, man?
I think it might be reality. Like, where we're at from the end of the book to now, like, it's not a safe place for the Starks. Like, you got to keep the identity hidden.
Sure.
Like, so it's a little harsh. It's maybe
a little harsh.
He's maybe being a little sharp around the edges to get the point across. But, that's definitely, that language is going to get the point across, where if I was in that position, I'd be like, all right, I'm like assuming 3 or 4 different names to distance myself from this, conflict as much as I can.
I think you're right. I think he's being a little over exaggerated just to impress upon her how badly she needs to keep a low profile. Because as we see, there are some nice people. Like Gendry is pretty nice. He's walking around. He's sticking up for her, and he's basically saying, picking someone your own size to Hot Pie and Lami. And actually, I want to ask about them. Because what was funny to me with this chapter is that we get this thing from Yoren who's like, they'll turn you in or they'll rape you or they're awful. And then we get, like, she's being chastised by Hot Pie and Lami. Yeah. Who are two kind of just, little shits who are just little kids. And it's dangerous, but it read as, like, almost like a goofy kind of thing. Like, where they were, like, because they're all kids, and, like, Hot Pie and Lami are clearly, little douches who are picking on the smallest person in the group, which is what you do when you're a douche.
And, or when your name's Hot Pie. Like, I'm sorry, but his name's Hot Pie.
More nicknames.
More nicknames, and also clearly compensating for the fact that he's called Hot Pie. He's got to take it out on somebody.
I think they say that his mom's a baker, and she just went through sweet name. Hot Pie is how he got his name. Cute. And then she kind of there's kind of a nice little passage where Hot Pie comes at her, and Arya, who's had some training, like plants her feet, stands still, and just like trips some and wails on him, kicks him in the balls over and over, and then he poops himself.
As you do.
As you do. And then he's crying, and he has to be in the wagon for the rest of the time. He can't walk, which is that badass? Is that funny? How was the tone of this chapter for you?
It was a little all over the place. It was definitely not a tone. It was because we're coming off the prologue, which is a tone-setting chapter, where we're establishing both the nuke. We have Melisandre, we have Stannis, and we're establishing this tone that we're going to carry through the rest of the book. And then we jump to this one, which was a little Three Stooges, a little bit.
Kind of, yeah. That's a good way to say it.
A little slapsticky stuff going on here, but it got done when it needed to get done, which was what we talked about in the theme of
Arya's alive.
Arya's alive, and the theme of her identity crisis.
Right.
Like, who is Arya? She's literally stripped down to the
her hair is gone.
Her hair is gone. She doesn't have a name. She has to hide who she is. She has to hide from everybody else, and literally, in this little band of misfits. go off on this journey where she doesn't really know where she's going to go. She thinks she knows where she's going to go, but as we know, it's not where she ends up going. And I think deep down, she also doesn't think that she's going where she's being told, which kind of sets in motion this whole thing where she's not trustworthy of anybody. She has faith in nobody else. She's only in business for herself. And that's really setting this up here in this chapter. And that, as goofy as it is, that's the big takeaway from it.
I think you're
so
right.
that can exist within slapsticky, getting kicked in the balls and crapping yourself stuff.
It's also like it's kids. I don't know. It's hard for like kids fighting and not have to be a little funny. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they're kind of. I've read Lord of the Flies, but this didn't seem like that.
That's a sharp turn from.
Another thematic thing was the comet. We see the comet in the air again. Martin does this thing in this book, and kind of only in this book, where he makes a really valiant effort to tie all the stories together, even though everyone's kind of separated.
Okay.
And in this book, it's everyone sees this comet in the air, the one that was over Daenerys's burning and dragon birth, and they all see it differently. Like last chapter, Maester Crescent was like, "Ooh, that comet's creepy." Was basically the gist of what he said.
Mr. Crescent, R.I.P.
Yes, R.I.P. Maester Crescent. Peace. And this chapter, Arya sees the comet, and she thinks it is Ned Stark's sword, ice, and the dripping with his blood, which is it's red. So and that's an interesting way to kind of thematically tie different chapters together. Even though I'll point out he after this book he never tries it again.
No,
it's like there's too many places. I'm not even gonna bother. But he does take a swing at tying everybody together with this comet.
Oh, good for him.
It's a good device. I think it works. It's fun.
It's very Steven Spielberg-y. He always has like the comet going wherever in the background of one of his shots, so you know that it's his movie.
Cool. I didn't know that.
So George R. R. Martin's being a little derivative here.
George R. R. Martin, get creative, man. And finally, I wanted to talk about shipping a bit.
Ah, yes, my favorite, as everybody knows.
I think it's very interesting. The chapter ends with basically Arya. I mean, the chapter ends literally with Arya thinking about Jon Snow and thinking, "I really want to see him again." Like that's kind of become sort of her goal.
Yeah.
Two things. I wonder if George R. R. Martin had abandoned the idea of having Jon and Arya get together by this point, which was his original plan. Weird as that sounds.
Very weird.
It is very weird to think
Extremely
about.
strange.
Hey, in season 8, we'll see him reunite. Maybe we'll see some vestiges of that. And B, we also get kind of another sort of love interest, let's call it, with Gendry coming in. This big strapping guy. He protects Arya. I mean, he doesn't really have to protect her because she kicks the crap out of them anyway. But, he tells Lami and Hot Pie, like, don't be dicks. Pick up somebody your own size. Stop teasing him. And, she notices him. Are they the OTP or one true pairing is what I've learned that means.
This is the first time I've ever heard that. So
that is a shipping term.
Yeah.
OTP means one true pairing. You're welcome.
Shipping. You're speaking foreign language here when you get into the shipping territory.
No,
because it actually was a curveball to even think that was a possibility. Because in my mind, I have it so set that they are absolutely not in any sort of a realm where they can be together.
Like Arya and Gendry?
Or Arya and Jon.
Yeah.
Arya and Gendry.
That's hard to think
That's
of.
weird. And Arya and Gendry is what it is. Like, this is kind of like when we talked about these other chapters in the other books with Sansa and Arya and Jon and, Robb, we didn't get from his perspective, but we saw these are kids and they're coming into their own. They're going to have to deal with these things that real people deal with around this age. So, like, this doesn't necessarily surprise me. Arya always seems to be more business.
She does, yes.
So it was a little striking in that regard too, because I've always seen Arya as she's a taskmaster with a sword. Like, she is going to get something done, and there's really only the mission and nothing else other than the mission. So that's the only real kind of curveball that threw me there. And the Jon stuff is just no thank you.
That's
like, I'm not here. Like, we got enough incest on the show. Like, I'm not looking to read that. Like, I'm good, especially forced. Like, this is the first time that idea was introduced to me, and I was like, nope, get it out.
I mean, again, it was like an idea he had early on. Obviously, he didn't go through with it.
Thank God. Like, why does he have all these incest ideas? Like,
that's a good
literally,
question.
All of the incest ideas George R. R. Martin has at least at one point considered. Like, maybe he should talk to somebody about that. Like,
would it interest you to know that there is a fairly large contingent of fans, or I'll say a passionate group of fans, who would like Jon and Sansa to get together?
I mean, I'm aware of that, but and that's not. It's still uncomfortable, but I don't need new. I don't need new,
New
combinations of incest introduced to my Game of Thrones viewing experience.
I think shipping culture is really interesting. Just like, where do they get their ideas? And I'm
Out of thin air, apparently. Grasping at straws is where we get these ideas.
We'll look at some of that a little later. Anyway, that's a pretty short chapter. Next week we will do Sansa 1. Arya with Sansa. Yeah.
Okay.
Back in King's Landing, how's she doing? As we continue to read A Clash of Kings. Read along with us, won't you? And we'll be back here, Facebook page, winterscoming.net, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesday. See you then, everybody. Thanks for watching.